Hi, my name is John Pujol. I'm here at University of California, Berkeley. My team is Simple Water Tap Score. Our business is to make it easier for people to test what's in their water. We want folks to know what they're drinking at their tap, bathing in, cooking with, all the water quality that goes into a house, and all of the things that happen to the water when it's in your house. The pipes obviously have lead, but groundwater itself can contain arsenic and other harmful contaminants, and we find it important to identify what those contaminants are, tell folks what they mean for their health, and how to remove them. And we do that by selling kits online, water testing kits that we sell on mytapscore.com.
And how'd you end up getting involved in the department and the business?
So I started several years ago, about 10 years ago, studying water sciences here at Berkeley. Initially with arsenic remediation, initially with a focus on removing arsenic from groundwater supplies, and slowly that transformed into a quest to actually analyze the water itself and figure out what is in the water, because we found that there's a lot of treatment technologies out there, but hardly anyone actually testing the water at home. So our mission became less about building a new treatment solution and more about identifying the problems people really face.
So for people who are watching right now, what is the first step if they're concerned about their water? What can they do? How do they get in touch with you? And typically in this area, obviously of Berkeley, what are people finding in the water?
Fortunately, we're blessed here in Berkeley to have really good water quality. The most common issues that we encounter pertain to old piping. Obviously things like lead, other solders, materials that exist in old pipes and in old plumbing and appurtenances. But the actual water quality that we're served by the public water system here, and worth noting that most folks in Berkeley and in Oakland are served by a public water system, and in San Francisco. That water quality is great. Edmund does a good job. Some people don't like the chlorine, the chloramines. There are health risks associated with having too much of these in the water, too much of the chlorination disinfection byproducts that can emerge if chlorination isn't working properly. But by and large, we're really happy with the public water system we have.
Is there fluoride in the water here?
Sometimes. Depends where. Yeah, I think there's a lot of fluoride is an interesting one. Fluoride, you have new science all the time, mostly emerging on the side that fluoride is great for your teeth. No one's doubting that. But drinking it in your tap water doesn't really help you as much as I think initially people wanted it or assumed it would. Having it in your toothpaste, probably worthwhile, as most of the data suggests. It does prevent cavities. Drinking in your tap water, more ambiguous. There's very little time for fluoride to actually be in contact with your teeth when you're drinking it. And so most of that fluoride is just going straight to your digestive system. And since fluoride is a toxin, there's concern that even at those low levels, it could be building up and causing issues. But to be honest, the story's still out on fluoride in drinking water.
Right. And if people would like more information about getting in touch with you and having their water tested, how could they do that?
Yeah, we've got a really cool service where we're very proud of giving folks the access to professional scientists, graduate student researchers, plumbers, other industry professionals who are standing by at all times on our website, mytapscore.com. And you can reach out and chat there, ask any questions. It might be a silly question, it might not. It might be a really complicated question that takes us a week to get back to you on. Either way, we're happy to hear the problem, hear the question you have, and do our best to answer it as quickly as we can.
Well, like I said, I'm really happy to meet with you today, and I appreciate your time here. I know you're busy, especially with your holiday sale. And I was, of course, was referred to you by a water scientist who has been involved in water processing and has worked for municipalities for years. So you came highly recommended because of the spectrum of things that you test for. Traditionally, people might be testing for things like pH. So I really appreciate meeting you, because some of the things we're dealing with in our county is in Nevada County, there's over 425 miles of irrigation ditches from the gold rush days. And a lot of the way that the Nevada Irrigation District, the water utility, deals with some of the issues like the algae. They're using copper-based heavy metals and various products in the water, and then they're also doing really heavy and excessive spraying along the irrigation canals with Roundup and other herbicides that, of course, have their own ramifications on community health. Mm-hmm. So again, really happy and honored to meet you and excited to kind of get some results. We just went out and tested a public spring that every day hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, come to fill up their water. There's a disclaimer from the county that they don't test the water, they're not responsible. But nonetheless, we're going to start, and we're very happy again to start collaborating with your lab to not only help bring you more clients, but to help preserve the health of our community, and most importantly, to get some really tangible science behind some of these locations.
Great. I think what you're doing is a really important mission, and it's something that needs to happen nationwide as we've, in my opinion, become a little bit lazy in terms of trusting the water quality that comes out of our taps. A lot of this is not just public water system issues, it's also just groundwater wells. A lot of folks never test their groundwater, and we know that in wells you have lurking contaminants like arsenic that you can't ever taste, you won't smell it, you won't see it, and it's a known carcinogen. And it's important that people kind of spread the word, do some level of testing, and if you find an issue, tell people and treat it. Because, I mean, life's worth living, no reason to get sick or hurt or have some kind of a temporary illness even because you have bacteria or heavy metals in your water.
And of course, some of the other issues, I'm sure, as you know, in this day and age is the level of, I believe there's over 4 billion prescriptions a year filled in the United States. And of course, a lot of those end up through people urinating or putting them down the drain. A lot of those pharmaceuticals end up in our water. And also not only just the pharmaceuticals, but also microplastics has been a huge issue. I know. So is your lab involved in any testing around those issues? Is there ways to test for those in our water? And even more importantly, would you recommend maybe some solutions for people? Maybe there's a certain type of water filter. What can they do to protect themselves?
We like to give everyone a personal recommendation because water quality can be so different for so many different people. And also needs are different. If you're a renter, if you're an owner, if you have a basement, if you have radioactive issues like radon, or if you have heavy metal issues, it all varies kind of our suggestion. There's no silver bullet is what I'm saying.
Well, just testing for pharmaceuticals or microplastics.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of interest in that. We do microplastics testing, we do pharmaceuticals testing, PFAS testing. I think we probably will say yes to any type of test insofar as we can figure out how to have it tested. And that's part of the brilliance of our model, we think, is that we have such a wide network of testing capabilities that just about anything we can deal with. Now, if you choose something kind of wild and out there, it's going to be more expensive. That's the only problem, but we'll do it. And I think that's kind of what we're striving towards, is that we can become a one-stop resource for anyone who wants to test absolutely anything in their environment.
Fantastic. And I know you just mentioned about radon. I know that that's another huge issue up where we live. So if suppose someone has a cement floor basement and there's a presence of radon, is that getting into the tap water? Is it getting into the groundwater? Maybe if they have issues as far as drainage and maybe a French drain, how does the radon affect the health besides the inhalation? As far as the water in a domestic house or dwelling? It's
a good question and a strange one. Radon continues to be an inhalation issue even in tap water. I mean, sure, you will ingest some of it if it's dissolved in the water, but generally speaking, you're being exposed to radon gas. The radon gas will come out, with the water from the tap or from the shower faucet, and especially if you're in a hot shower and you're spending 15 minutes in there and that water's coming out just spewing, radon gas. That inhalation can be very damaging to your health. In particular, radon gas usually exercises its harm on you through the emission of alpha particles, a form of radioactive decay, and those are known to degenerate cells, cause cell damage, potentially to cancers. If you're to think about radon gas in water versus radon gas in air, the rule of thumb is that the radon in the water has about 10% of the effect of the radon in the air, which is why it's not as regulated. That said, 10% can still be a lot if you've got a big problem. And also for a lot of people, it's like, let's just limit it as low as we can. So it may not be as big of an issue as the radon in your basement, but maybe you want to have no issue at all. And there are ways to get rid of radon in your water. They're just not that super cheap, unfortunately, not yet.
And can radon pass through like piping or pass through and actually get into the water? Or is it something that comes into the house itself in the water already?
It typically comes in with the water. So if your
Okay.
water is in contact with like a radon contaminated aquifer, then when the well is pumping that water and that water is coming up through the pipes, it's bringing radon gas with it, dissolved in the water. And as soon as that radon gas has a chance, it will evaporate into a gas. And so that's why you end up inhaling it, even though it's coming through your tap water.
All right. Even if you're maybe using even fans in your basement to blow the radon out.
It'll still come in through the water.
Right.
Through the plumbing.
Right. And lastly, just any suggestions? Maybe there's maybe not as an endorsement, but again, solutions. Maybe this particular type of water filter, ceramic, carbon, charcoal, something that people can use that's going to help filter out the majority of these things.
Sure. I mean, there's, like I said, no silver bullet. And in California, drought-ridden state, I guess not so much up in Northern California, but certainly in Southern California, the suggestion of using a reverse osmosis is always a little bit politicized. However, that is probably the easiest one answer I can give you for removing almost all of the metals and all the various ions that'll be in water. Ceramic filters, catalytic carbon, these are great, but they don't always remove the heavy metals that we're worried about. They'll do a much better job with chlorine. Sometimes they'll do a good job with fluoride, but they have to be specifically labeled as such. And if you have any questions, just message us. We're happy to tell you. We know the products inside now.
Oh, fantastic. Again, I really appreciate your time today. And as far as the water filtration piece, so again, it's really purely on the things that you have in your water as far as what works. Just lastly, could you just briefly explain reverse osmosis? Because I know people go and will pay a lot of money at the health food store to get different types of water, purified water, spring water, reverse osmosis. Can you just briefly tell us the difference of those?
Sure. It's worth noting there's a lot of silly crazes out there. Silly in the sense that, they might be true, but there really isn't the kind of validation out there at the moment, which, you can rally behind full force without at least appreciating the fact that, the science isn't fully in. Things like spring water, alkaline water, these are a bit kind of still unsure of what the benefits are, and a lot of times they can actually be harmful, worth noting. As far as reverse osmosis treatment goes, it operates on a process in which you're using a membrane that selectively removes charged particles from entering your final water supply. So if your raw water supply is coming in with a bunch of different charged particles that you don't want, those charged particles will not move through the membrane, and therefore the only material in your water that will move through the membrane is the water, the H2O. Now, there's some gases that'll move through, there are contaminants that'll ruin the membrane, and so it's not always such a simple answer. But you can think of the reverse osmosis membrane as a filter with really, really, really tiny holes that operates on a principle of exclusion, excluding things that cannot, fit through that membrane. On the other end, you get clean water, but you have a waste stream, and that's why it's considered a little bit wasteful, because reverse osmosis might take in 100 liters of water, spit 40 of them out as waste, and only deliver 60 of them as final product. So if you're in a drought-ridden area, RO is a bit of a political word.
Yeah. And of course, having a filter on your shower for whatever chlorines or things are in your water, and of course having one at your tap is always helpful also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The shower filters are great, especially if you're feeling like dry skin, or if you recently moved and you're having weird skin reactions. This is something we have a lot of. People complaining about a new home, and I go to shower and I get these weird rashes, or my hair feels really dry. Those are typically water quality issues, and they're often related to either a metal in the water, a softener that's connected to the home, or higher chlorine levels than you're previously used to. All right, so most of our customers will order an advanced city water test, an essential city water test, an advanced well test, or an essential well test. Those all come in these boxes. It's got everything you need: shipping labels, materials, like very clear sampling instructions, so you're getting like this a proper sample. And then you have, in addition to kind of those more common tests, more esoteric tests, things for PFAS, pharmaceuticals, soil testing. We have all sorts of other less common types of tests pharmaceuticals, radon, and so forth, which require either dry ice or some other form of preservation that's more advanced, and they'll come in these bigger coolers like this.
And you're doing soil testing also?
Yeah, we do soil testing as well. Some of these tests require folks to exercise, caution, because the materials that are being used to preserve the samples are dangerous. So we try to make that obviously very clear. Like I said, for most of the cases that we're dealing with, people who are testing their water in their home, it's a very simple box. There's nothing dangerous about it. It's all about just following the instructions and sending them in with the prepaid shipping label.
And again, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Oh yeah, they go to mytapscore.com, and there's usually a little blue button on the bottom. You click it, you'll be talking to a water scientist in a couple minutes.
Well, great. We'll be back in touch, and we're really happy to be working. We're definitely going to spread the word about the lab here and what you're doing with your organization, because I think you're providing a central resource and something that's very new paradigm, because it really takes this type of innovation and organization so people can actually know the science and the reality about things, and not just assume or fall victim to some fake news or what the current trend is. So again, thank you for all your time and work and what you do.
Cool, my pleasure. Yeah, we want to democratize science, and that's the kind of big picture goal that we keep moving towards.
Well, you're doing it here, and of course, University of California, Berkeley has been known for over 50 years of really being at the cutting edge of social change and science and technology. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for inviting me on the show.